let's talk about Peter Dinklage. A lot of people know from Game of Thrones. Great actor. A lot of people know him from something else. First time I think I really can remember Peter in something.
He's an angry elf.
Look at you!
He said some comments lately that annoyed some people. Like he talked about Game of Thrones and the reaction that it got with the ending, and that the pretty white people were upset or something along those lines. But he came for Disney because they plan on doing an adaptation of Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. And so he was happy that they're using a Hispanic actress as Snow White, which we've talked about this on the show before. Why? It's just Snow White is kids as white as snow. That's the story. So why would she be Hispanic? Why? Now Disney can do whatever it wants to do, but this is one of their most iconic stories that they did. I mean, obviously they make all these stories that Disney does. It's an adaptation based off of something, including Encanto, that everyone's like going around singing a lot about. You know, that we don't talk about Bruno. You know, that all this stuff is based off something. So they didn't create Snow White, but Snow White was like something that Walt Disney like adored, loved, was trying to always recapture that sort of magic from Snow White. It was a very iconic movie at the time. So now they're doing the live action Disney. I like to think of the live action Disney as like it's its own different thing. You know, they changed a lot with the Snow White film, the Aladdin film, and they're just weird. They're just different. They're just different. I'm not gonna get up all in arms about the Ariel thing. My sister was super mad about The Little Mermaid because that's one of her favorite movies. She loves Ariel, and she doesn't like the direction that it's going. And what I don't understand about that, there is a black actress who's playing Ariel. They don't even get the right hair, red hair. It's a different like shade of red. It's not even like the iconic Ariel. I don't understand why they don't want to be loyal to their own material. That baffles me, because they made Ariel a redhead like that because there was another film called Splash with Tom Hanks that came out around the same time. So they made their mermaid to be iconic. You know, I have a book that I wrote about a mermaid, and I gave her blue hair because I didn't want people wanted to cosplay. I didn't want people to, you know, there are some like Easter eggs, I guess you could say, that will remind you of like the original story of The Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen and like the Disney one. But I still, if someone were to cosplay it, I didn't want someone to be wearing red hair or something, and people were like, "Oh, that's like a cool, you know, warrior Ariel." It's like, no, that's not who that's supposed to be. So I gave her blue hair. So Disney not being loyal to their own sort of thing is weird to me. Snow White thing is super puzzling. Peter Dinklage was on a podcast and said, "I was a little taken aback when they were very proud to cast a Latina actress as Snow White. You're still telling the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. Take a step back and look at what you're doing here. It makes no sense to me. You're progressive in one way, and you're still making that bleeping backward story about seven dwarves living in a cave together. What the bleep are you doing, man? Have I done nothing to advance the cause from my soapbox? I guess I'm not loud enough." Again, I want to point out the film where I first remember seeing Peter Dinklage in a movie called Elf. And the whole joke about him being in the film was that Will Ferrell's character thought he was an elf. And he kept saying stuff about him being small, and this character was offended, and he ended up attacking him. That's why he's like running in here, because he's about to attack Will Ferrell, if I'm remembering the scene correctly. Will Ferrell's character was Buddy, and Buddy was actually from the North Pole, and he went to go stay with his father, and he went to work, and then he saw this. He was a renowned children's author, and when Buddy saw him, he was like, "You're very far from the North Pole," and so he's saying all these things that are offensive to Peter Dinklage's character, not knowing that he's not meaning to be offensive. He's just ignorant of the ways of the world. But that was the joke. That was a joke. And maybe from his perspective, he was standing up for himself. So that kind of scene is okay. And comedy is, you know, You can laugh at things in comedy. At least that's how it used to be. At least that's how it used to be. Um, I just think it's an interesting observation. I just think it's interesting. And once upon a time, they did handle Snow White and the Seven Dwarves, and that was on ABC, so still, technically Disney, but um, they weren't human. They were born from eggs, and they're all just like these mannish people who hatched from eggs, and they had these their magical axes, and they've mined for fairy dust. And when they got their axe, the magical axe gave them their name based on their personality or whatever. There was an episode called Dreamy because Grumpy was actually dreamy at first, and he got his heart broken, and then he became grumpy. They can do different things with it, and I guess Disney is. So after Peter Dinklage outraged, they did respond, and they said, to avoid reinforcing stereotypes from the original animated film, we are taking a different approach with these 7 characters and have been consulting with members of the dwarfism community. We look forward to sharing more as the film heads into production after a lengthy development period, a Disney spokesperson told The Hollywood Reporter. So, I mean, his soapbox worked, I guess. We'll see what Disney does. Maybe they won't be dwarves. Maybe it'll be clear that they're not human. Maybe they'll just change different things about the personalities. But the dwarves were very kind to Snow White in her moment of need. They were very heroic in the film. I mean, the prince gets a lot of credit for kissing her, but in waking her up, did true love's kiss and all that stuff. But they were very brave, courageous, and kind to her. So they're heroes of the story. So I don't think, I mean, and I'm not a dwarf, so I'm obviously coming from a different perspective, but just as someone who grew up, liking these animated films and being a fan of film, I just don't, they're the heroes of the story. They're the heroes of the story. And once upon a time, they brought Ursula on the show, and there are people upset because she was played by a skinny black woman as opposed to a fat black woman. And I was like, if the skinny girls want to be evil, then go ahead and be evil. I'm so like, I didn't take it too personal. I didn't feel like I didn't have representation because they didn't put a fat black person on screen. I'm like, if you want. Hey, Ursula is one of the most like evil characters in Disney, in my opinion. So I'm like, you can rock that evil, you skinny heifer, you like. So I wasn't like hating on him or whatever. I don't know what they'll do with the dwarves, and I don't know how much Disney's willing to change their iconic characters. We live in a very woke world, and it is puzzling to me though how Disney will try to be so sensitive about some of their stuff, but at the same time they'll have something like Beyonce's Lion King music video like experience or something, where she made all this music video stuff associated with the Lion King called Black is King, which I thought was a curious title and contrast because Kanye not too long ago had an album that was Jesus is King, and then she had an album that Black is King. I don't know, maybe it means nothing, maybe it doesn't. But there was one video she had when someone called Scar, and the lyrics were quite curious. Or like, in the jungle ain't no Bible and other kind of stuff. And it appeared like she had an actual demonic possession in it. I got into a big back and forth with someone, and they're like, thought I was overreacting, and that, I don't know, I guess we see stuff that's kind of like spiritual and just see it as demonic. And I'm like, Christians pretty much believe everything that's not Christian is demonic anyway. But they said ain't no Bible, and her eyes rolled to the back of her head. There was contortionist, and if you look at it, I thought it was interesting, and I thought it was interesting that it was on Disney Plus, and I thought it was interesting that they were advertising it so much. I don't pay for Disney Plus, and I probably would have ended my subscription when they started that. But that's just me. You guys are free to do whatever you want. But again, we're talking about people who are heroes of the story, who helped save the girl, who took care of the girl in need at a time where there was an evil queen looking for her, who tried to have her killed, who sent a huntsman after her and stuff. And Godspeed to the dwarves. They're good peoples, and I love the dwarves. I had a Snow White doll, and I had all the seven dwarves. But just some interesting commentary. It was really trending, and obviously he was able to make his impression at Disney. But I think it's interesting that when conservatives bark, they can't sway Disney, but other people can sway Disney. I'll just leave it at that. I'll leave it at that.